And if you don't mind, we'll leave the door open.
Well, we can as long as there's nobody yakking in the
Pretty
hall.
quiet.
Ready? You're on?
I roll the window behind you up.
Hey,
Give it your best.
All right, welcome everyone. It is Thursday, February 5th, 2026. This is House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. I am Representative Scott Campbell from St. Johnsbury. We'll go around the room and introduce ourselves and then people in the room and then try to take testimony. We're going to be hearing testimony today on H753, an act relating to utility disconnections and ratepayer protections. All right, so Rich, you're up.
Rich Bailey from LaBoyle 2.
Chris Morrow, Wyndham, Windsor, Bennington. Christopher Howland, Rutland 4.
Territory, Washington, too.
Graham Putner, Chittenden 13, Burlington.
Laura Spillier.
Amy Perry, and passengers.
Sure.
Audrey Grant from Parker, Vermont. Rebecca Dalkin, the 350 Vermont. Nika Erlberger from 350 Vermont. Debbie New, South Burlington, Vermont.
Richard Woods, Vermont Interfaith Power and Light, and such a church.
Okay, that goes. And on screen we have,
Ellen Amstutz.
Ellen.
Hi, Ellen Amstutz from the Vermont Parent-Child Center Network.
Okay, fabulous. And it looks like we have Richard Woods, is it?
Yes, Woods.
Thanks. On the list, would you like to go first or we have a different order? Okay,
Sure.
all right. So if you wouldn't mind coming up, sitting in the hot seat.
It's probably a hot seat.
Well, everything's a hot seat in this.
That's what I
this
do.
room.
Yeah.
Feel free to take off your coat if you'd like. All right, I'll go over to you. Do you have a presentation?
If you can hook my computer up, yes, otherwise I send it ahead, yeah. Okay.
Well, if you'd like to put it on screen, now you have a number of things here. Is it basically written testimony?
What I have is an outline, and then I'm going to read a couple of stories.
Okay.
So whatever's your pleasure.
Well, I guess we can just, people can access the testimony online and we'll just let you go ahead.
Okay, great. So thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about 753. I'm here really to put kind of a face on it, to tell you some stories about people that I've been in contact with who have had problems with their utility bills. And going to be talking particularly about 3 people, but maybe some others if we have time. I'd like to remind everybody that according to the federal government Pulse survey, it's a bi-monthly survey that comes out from the federal government, as I said, in June, July of 2025, 72 million Americans were in arrears on their utility bills. That's 1 in 5 Americans. So this particular bill, I think, that's very germane. I want to give you a little background about where the stories come from. Are you familiar with the Joint Urban Ministries project in Burlington? Okay, I'll pass around some things here that I just got from them for you to keep. JUMP is a organization that serves low income and street people. They meet at the First Congregational Church. They're open on Thursday and Friday mornings. If you want to see the face of people who are suffering from economic hardship and who often have trouble paying their utility bills, show up around 8:45 on a Thursday or Friday morning at First Congregational Church in Burlington. And you'll see a line of people at the door waiting to get in. 25 of those people will be admitted. That's all they can handle on a particular day because of their funding limitations. And those people will be ushered in and they will be counseled about whatever programs are available to help them. The problem is if somebody comes in with a high utility bill and about to be disconnected, all Jump can give them is $75 toward that bill, which might avoid the disconnection, but it doesn't get them out of the hole. Nonetheless, Jump does an incredible job. And if you go in, you'll see a really welcoming atmosphere. My wife and I ran a couple of weeks ago during the really cold weather. And 5 degrees below zero, people are standing outside hoping to get a cup of coffee, get out of the cold, and maybe get some assistance. Bless you.
Thanks.
The other thing I want to tell you about is my church's fund that we set up to help people who are falling through the cracks. So we have a fund, it's called the Drivabus Fund, named after a family in the church who was very concerned about these kinds of things. In fact, Beth Drivabus was president of the board at Jump for a while. What we do, we have set up a fund in which we can literally instantaneously help somebody. No bureaucracy. All that we need is that we get a reference from Jump or CVOEO, some organization that we trust, who vets the people. And then we will buy them a motel room for the night. We will pay for a bus ticket. We will, as I'll tell you in the stories, we will pay a utility bill that's more than $75. In fact, we paid the one that I'm going to be telling you about is actually much more than that. In fact, second, got the wrong thing up. One of the utility bills is over $1,300 that we were able to pay that has gone into a disconnect action. So we've got 2 organizations, Jump, that's trying to meet the needs of people very quickly, and my church. But what I want to tell you is we're inadequate. There are not enough of us to do what needs to be done. And what we're urging the state of Vermont to do, and the federal government for that matter, is to realize these are societal problems. They're not, the not-for-profit community cannot solve these problems. They've got to be solved in other ways. So let me tell you a little bit about a couple of people. And all the names and things have been changed, so you don't have to worry about that. First one is about a woman, we're calling her Mo, and we're calling her husband Ed. This woman came to Vermont as a toddler and raised herself up and became literally a young professional mom. She's asking for help with a $1,377 utility bill that she has no way to pay. Now, if you look at this woman's situation, she's in her late 20s. She has 3 kids, a baby who was diagnosed with a medical condition. All of these things happen to people that put them into real deep trouble. And so even with help from her family, and even though she had been doing really well personally and professionally, in July, her son had to have surgery and she had to drop down to 15 hours a week work in order to take care of her son. We're sure that once she gets back on her feet and is able to work, she'll be a productive citizen again and be able to take care of her family. So this is one picture. The electric bill was the thing that threw her into into a real crisis.
Oh, yeah.
And so
I think.
we were able to take care of that, and hopefully that's taken the pressure off. Another one is a woman in similar circumstances, in this case, a single mother with a 17-year-old daughter, a 9-year-old son, and a 6-year-old daughter. And she qualifies for 3 squares and all of the things that are available. And by the way, I just learned that 3 squares is very tenuous right now, which is something I'm sure you're aware of. So here's a woman who can only work 15 hours a week like the other woman. But can you imagine? She has a kid that she has to take.
Close the door upstairs.
She has a kid that she has to take down to Boston to diagnose and have surgery for esophageal, have an esophageal biopsy. And so the pressures on her are really hard. She was asking for $497, and we were able to deal with that. The third one is one that I'm particularly connected to. I began collecting these stories by posting on Front Porch Forum in Bristol. If you're having trouble paying your utility bill, contact me. Gave them my email address, and I got a flurry of people who, some of them just wanted to emote, frankly. None of these people were asking for money. And so the first one, Kenneth, this is his real name, and I have his permission. I'm going to read this one in his own words, if you permit me. Dear sir, I am 70 YO and always had troubles paying my heating oil fuel bill. For years, I've been asking Hope to help, and they did. Also, fuel assistance helped, but now I can no longer continue to ask any more from them, so I am going without food and clothing. I live in a mobile home in Starksboro. I have watched myself and other person be victim of high cost of heating oils. If they can only deliver 100 gallons at $8 a gallon, that chunk of income from seniors like me who retired early due to disability got penalties to our income and fall in that area above the cut. Plus the fact of a high premium monthly removed from income for poor healthcare coverage, probably his Medicare premium and so on. Well, sir, during the winter months, we lose. At 3 months out of the year, more than half of our monthly income to pay for heat and electrical utilities. I am a registered voter in the town of Starksboro. Town clerk's office has record of that in my DD 214 from my days of service in the U.S. Army. A post a Vietnam veteran, which means we were on a ready line in 1974. We're the most forgotten and disrespected veterans because we did not go to war. I served in Berlin, Germany for 2 years or better of my term, which means to me, I was there defending my country as well as parts of Germany. Thinking after 40 years or less factory labor in this country would net me my benefits from Social Security from my time served, yet I sit here with no dental insurance and a mouth full of decaying teeth with no financial help to have my much needed oral surgery. Just cannot afford it, even with Vermont Blue. Good luck to you and your group and so on. So this is you can see the guys sitting in a sprinter. Nothing with these high bills and no way to pay them. I convinced Kenneth to get an estimate of what it would cost to fix his surgery. He didn't want to. He said, I don't have any money. It won't do any good.
We don't need any more. Sorry, we don't need any more chairs. I put 2 more is great.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, he was not at first willing, but I convinced him to go up to Fanny Allen and get an estimate, which came in at $3,300 to fix his surgery. In the meantime, he began to do more looking into his insurance, and he found some coverage from health and dental. Our fund paid the rest of it, and we got it done about 2 weeks ago. And he is absolutely grateful. But it's funds like ours that are stressed to try to pay this stuff. And that's why I think a program like this that would ease the burden on people who are paying their electric bills by limiting disconnects and that kind of pressure. I think it's well worth considering. So I hope you'll do that.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, let's see. Next we have Nikki. Did I say that right?
Mika,
Nika, sorry.
all good. No one gets it the first time. Hi everyone.
Nika, all right. Nika Riddlebarger.
Yes.
RG.
What was it?
RG.
Yes, Riddlebarger.
Riddlebarger, good. All right.
It's an extremely German name.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for taking the time to hear from us. My name is Mika. I use they them pronouns, and I'm one of 350 Vermont's organizing co-directors. 350 Vermont is a grassroots climate justice organization and a member of the Active Climate Coalition. We are building a people-powered and people-led climate justice movement in Vermont. We're guided by the voices, experience, and solutions of those most impacted by the global climate crisis. And we strive to work at the intersections of the climate crisis and social justice, like utility justice, to address the climate crisis equitably and effectively. As some background for why we're here today, in 2024, 350 Vermont was advocating for House Bill 668, which was a ratepayer protection bill. It was later folded into Act 142 as an energy cost stabilization study, which you've heard a lot about on Wednesday. This study was directed to the Public Utilities Commission to review the existing programs to reduce utility costs, consider whether a statewide ratepayer program is needed, and then make a recommendation, which came out in December of this past year. 350 understood the importance of a statewide ratepayer protection program in 2024, and that importance has only grown in 2026. Costs of living have increased across the board, particularly for our most vulnerable populations. When the PUC began its investigation into the issue in early 2025, our volunteers and allies remained engaged in the process, submitting public comments and participating in the hearings held by the Public Utilities Commission. As you heard during testimony on Wednesday, the PUC's study did not address many of the concerns and recommendations brought forward by us and our allies during its investigation, and declined to recommend a statewide ratepayer protection program, which I'm not here to advocate necessarily for today. I did include our response report to the PUC's report, however. However, the PUC's report did underscore the significant energy burden many Vermonters are facing, and it became extremely clear through the PUC's investigation that electric disconnections have been steadily increasing over the years, despite increased assistance programs offered by some utilities. Being disconnected from your electric service, or your gas, or your water results in a ripple effect of problems. If you lose power, you may not be able to charge a phone or a laptop needed for work. If you use an electric stove, you will no longer be able to cook a meal. And even if you have a gas stove, your fridge and your freezer are no longer working to keep food safe, let alone medications like insulin. What about people with complex health needs, like breathing machines or ventilators, who are already dealing with an increased cost of living? What if you rely on electricity to heat or cool your home, especially during the increased periods of extreme weather? H753 would address these questions and increase protections for our most vulnerable populations. In addition to being here to represent 350 and our volunteers, I'm also here as a resident of the Northeast Kingdom, an area particularly impacted by high energy burden, climate disasters, and infrastructure that's been unprepared to the slew of problems brought on by the climate crisis. As I mentioned previously, some utilities do offer assistance programs for low-income ratepayers, but many of our smaller utilities, like Hardwick Electric, where I live, do not offer assistance. Support systems like Richard spoke about, such as churches, free meal sites, and mutual aid networks, are straining as costs go up and more residents are in need of help. Many of our neighbors and many of us are one missed paycheck away from having to choose between heat, transportation, food, or medicine, choices that no one should be forced to make. H753 is a crucial move towards an equitable, safe future and a just transition for Vermont. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Right. Next, we have, does anybody have any questions? I guess I should have asked that on the way here. I'm sorry, I was distracted. My wife got stuck in the snow. She's trying to call them. Did anybody have any questions for either Richard or Mika? Okay. We'll go on to Ellen on screen.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Ellen Amstutz. I'm the director of the Vermont Parent-Child Center Network. And thank you for the opportunity to share the experiences of our low-income families who have children under the age of 6 who are struggling to pay for utilities. The Parent-Child Center Network represents Vermont's 15 parent-child centers located throughout the state. We provide a range of in-home and community-based services to families with children under the age of 6. The 15 parent-child centers are funded by the state to deliver 8 core services that build family resilience, responsive parenting, support child development, protect against economic hardship, and prevent child maltreatment. The parent-child centers are trusted places in the community where families turn to in times of need. In this past fiscal year, the parent-child centers statewide served over 20,000 families. One of those 8 core services that we provide is help with concrete supports. Concrete supports are the material and financial help to address immediate needs and mitigate hardship. This is provided in many forms, including food, diapers, clothing, transportation, and help with rent or utilities. Each parent-child center has a small fund to help with these needs. This year, the parent-child centers experienced a 28% increase in families requesting concrete supports, and utility bills represented a sizable portion of these requests and of the funds that we spend. So I reached out to our 15 directors, and just the parent-child centers are all independent 501c3 nonprofit organizations headed by executive directors or a parent-child center manager director. So I reached out to them and got some information about how they are dealing with folks with utility cutoffs and disconnects. What I learned from Windham County, our early education services in Brattleboro. Last year, they made utility payments for 39 families last year, paying out a total of $8,000. Most of these families were facing a disconnect notice. All had children under the age of 5 in the home. They work with a local partnership through their community action agency. They help families apply for energy discounts. They also provided food and gas cards, grocery cards, so that income could be freed up to pay utility bills. In central Burlington, we've got the J.S. Munt Family Room. The director shared with me that they simply have too many families to help who are asking for help with utility to provide support to all who request it. Some of the families that come in have utility bills of over $500. The parent-child center staff at this center work with a representative at Burlington Electric to coach families on how to reduce their bills and to make their homes more efficient, as well as applying for energy assistance programs. And the parent-child center uses that fund that I talked about to reduce the bills and help folks negotiate payment plans. In St. Albans, the Parent-Child Center at Northwestern Counseling and Supportive Services shared a few stories with me. One was a single mother with 3 children who missed a payment and faced a disconnection notice. Other cases were a single parent with 2 children who lived in a you know, kind of old substandard apartment with very high electric heat bills. The patterns we noticed that director noticed are they were predominantly single parents raising children on one income and falling behind because of, you know, loss of income or some unexpected expense and needing to make a decision about which bill to pay. And sometimes utility felt like the least, the one that could be skipped. And unfortunately, that isn't the case. Then in the Northeast Kingdom, we've got 2 parent-child centers that are part of the community action there, and they serve a very low-income community. They, with the Community Actions Agency, coupled coaching assistance and fuel assistance programs with the utility payments and other concrete supports to help those families stay afloat while they work on longer-term solutions. In Lamoille, at the Lamoille Family Center last year helped 15 households paying out $3,300 to utility companies to prevent disconnection. One example the director there shared with me was a 2-parent family who welcomed their 3rd child. The mother worked at a local ski area and had to take unpaid maternity leave. There were no infant slots available in childcare, so she had to stop working temporarily. And during that time, the family fell behind in their water and electric bills. They lived in an unweatherized trailer with electric heat during the cold season. Their bills were very high. And Lamoille also, that director also shared with me several examples of people whose families who simply don't earn enough from jobs to cover their housing costs. And that needing to make that decision about which bills to pay, often a family prioritizing the housing, the rent bill over the utility bill, getting them into a problem with facing a disconnect for the utility. One particular family was so far behind in fees and penalties that it was simply prohibitive to turn back the utilities on and for them to meet monthly payments. Substandard housing and unweatherized housing does seem to be a problem for families, resulting in high heating costs and utility costs, electric heat in trailers, for example, families earning farming wages or other low income and can't make the full monthly payments. You know, we know that living without utilities and substandard housing conditions can be detrimental to the health and well-being of young children. But what can be even more consequential is the stress and adversity that parents experience and the negative impact on the cognitive development of babies and toddlers at a most critical time in brain development. Parents cannot provide the nurturing and stable care that is critical to healthy brain development when they're facing daily stresses of making them ends meet. It is of critical importance that utilities are affordable to families. Poor families are disproportionately impacted by having utilities take up such a large portion of their budgets. It's critical that families, and especially those with very young children, be protected from utility disconnections. The parent-child centers can help, and they are help, but we are simply unable to keep up with the needs. Separately, we are requesting an increase in our concrete support funding from the state to enable us to assist more families along these lines. But by providing short-term financial supports when families need them most, we can mitigate hardship and help families navigate the short-term challenges. Parents can be better at parenting when protected from the most adverse consequences of being poor, including with going without basic services. So we hope you'll consider how families with young children are impacted by high utility costs and support H753 and the Parent-Child Center's request for additional funding for concrete supports. They are Vermont's next generation, and we need to ensure they are raised in safe, nurturing, and healthy environments, and their parents have support and stability they need to do that. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you, Ellen. I would say that all of your stories are very compelling. This bill is a pretty narrow response to the issue. It's just about telling utilities. Well, actually, it's Corey's bill, so I don't know if you want to talk about it. It's about avoiding disconnections to the extent possible and beginning to track disconnections as a metric for sort of judging their performance. And really, the answer to the problem that you're talking about is much more comprehensive than that. It's about finding a way to subsidize the actual electric rates of folks in this the lower end of the economic ladder, and how do we do that? How do we pay for that? But I don't know, Corey, do you want to make some comments?
Yeah, I mean, this did, I think, Mika referred to the bill from 2024, which was much more comprehensive, and there is a version of that, an updated version of that in the Senate now, which would look at, a rate solution, percentage of income or tier discount. But that hasn't really been, was not supported in the PUC's Act 142
Report.
report. And of course, we have the ability to request it or we would require it. But I felt like with the time that we had this term, it would be at least helpful to look at disconnections themselves. And I heard through the summer that there are examples, and we're going to hear from someone tomorrow, Scott Johnstone at Morrisville, where they've had a lot of success preventing disconnection. So I feel like that's where the idea for this bill was to incentivize the utilities through this metric to, it's a hard problem, but there could be strategies and there could be knowledge sharing and best practices that could help prevent some disconnections. And then, of course, there's some cleanup in the statute itself we're going to hear about from Carol Flint at the department. And they deal with whenever someone gets disconnected, their notice tells them that they can call the Department of Consumer Assistance. So hearing her perspective on increasing notices that are going out is going to be important. And of course, the Department of Public Service itself has done a study on energy burden and disconnections, and actually had some recommendations that this bill can carry forward. So it's not out of nowhere. This is from, there's a history here, and this is a step. And it's a great opportunity to hear stories from our communities. And we all know that times are getting tougher for people.
Yeah.
So I feel some urgency in being responsive, and I really appreciate your time and your testimony and the roles that you all play.
Yes.
Thank you. And I think the protections would be very important. And I know that our staff would want to really understand folks' rights and be able to work with them. And we're doing that already with the utility companies. I mentioned our Burlington folks really get on the phone with the utility, negotiate, hey, what can we do here? We'll pay a little bit, get that utility workout payment plan. So agreed that this is a multi-step process. The subsidies and the support would be great, but the protections would be an amazing first step. So we'd really support and work with the utility companies and our families on that.
Well, I will say that there's a lot to be said for a performance metric as a way of asking utilities to figure it out yourself. This is what you got to do. How are you going to do it? You guys can figure it out. In terms of tracking disconnections and requiring them to drive down the rate of disconnection of some fashion. But Fran, you were next.
I know Jim in his testimony yesterday mentioned that some states have protections for families with very young children. And, I would say that would be something to consider also for the reasons I
Yeah.
mentioned about healthy brain development
Right.
and how important those first few years of life are for safe, stable parenting with a parent who can really be attentive and nurturing. So.
Yeah, so I agree. This is an important bill that addresses a real question in helping people avoid the spiral that you mentioned. When you get your power cut off, then everything else goes wrong in your life pretty quickly. And to your initial comment, Representative Campbell, that this is one small part of a problem, right? Like the real problem is people don't have enough money for all the stuff in their lives. We heard they're paying the rent to avoid getting evicted instead of paying their power bill. Better to have a cold roof over your head than no roof over your head. But they're both bad. And, we hear these stories about people whose kids are sick and need medical attention in Boston. And, if you have a sick kid, then you'll do anything to take care of that kid. You'll skip your rent payment, you'll skip your utility bill, you'll skip all those things. So, as we've discussed, the problems are all connected: affordable housing, property taxes, healthcare costs, energy costs. They're all tangled up, and every little bit helps. This bill is a little bit, which will help a little bit, and we will keep trying to make Vermont work for the people who live here.
Yeah, I just want to thank all of our witnesses today. As someone who grew up in rural poverty and spent a lot of time being cold in the winter and has experienced electric disconnections, I appreciate your advocacy on behalf of those people who have smaller voices and may not be able to be here. Having said that, I think that there are aspects of this bill that I think I could support, looking at making sure we understand what disconnection policies are with our electric utilities. I want to make sure I'm as clear as I can be about the concerns that I have. We are looking at here, we're focusing our attention on regulated utilities. And what they are regulated for now are rates and affordability. And in particular, our electric utilities, which I've spent a lot of time thinking about. The PUC is trying to, is suppressing rates. They have to balance keeping the lights on, hardening the grid with climate, what we're seeing with winds and weather. They have to balance the requirements that we put on them around renewable energy, which I think is really important. There's a pretty big balance that we are trying to achieve here. And our utilities are asked and regulated heavily to comply to that. And I don't know if you saw the testimony yesterday, we have a pretty distinct regulatory environment that is different than a lot of other states, which have a market type environment where you have choice and competition. And that's not what we have here in Vermont. We have heavily regulated utilities. I am always open to looking at and asking, have you thought about this? Help us understand. I'm worried there's no fuel oil in here. And and they continue to stick out like a sore thumb as the unregulated, really critical resource that people need to get places and stay warm. And we do not contemplate them here. So I will listen hard. I will think hard, but this is challenging for me. It feels a bit like we're pulling a couple of Jenga pieces and not really looking for the system. So happy to hear more, learn more, and sincerely appreciate your advocacy on behalf of cold people and for people So I hope you'll hang in there and help us think about, that system and systemic solutions here. Thanks. Mr.
I just want to respond to that.
Sure.
I just want to make the point that these utilities are guaranteed a rate of return in our regulated market.
One,
Two.
Well, all right. So the majority of Vermonters are served by utilities that are guaranteed a significant rate of return every year. So not to counteract all your points, I'm just saying that that's, they're doing fine and
so,
balancing a lot of different concerns
yes,
for sure. But they get their 8% or whatever it is, 7%. What is that now? 7?
We're in-
11.
It's 11 now?
I don't, at one point it was, yeah.
Well, I think Rich was next.
So I appreciate all these stories, and I worked in 2 utilities. And although I did not work on disconnects, I overheard a lot of going on disconnects. And believe me, those people do not want to pull the plug on you folks. They try to work very hard with them to get a payment plan that they can work with and do what they can to try to keep the power on. One of these stories you gave us is my suggestion, and I'm not saying it's an answer, but when you're starting to have troubles with your utility bill, they should immediately start calling customer service to try to see if they can get ahead of it rather than letting it keep going. Try to see if you can catch it at the front part of it rather than get into a $1,300 utility bill. But the folks I worked with always were trying to work very hard to keep the power on when they could. So,
Could I respond to that?
sure.
I think there are no bad people here. Really, and I appreciate what you say, and I'm sure it's true. Early on in my career, I was deciding whether to pay the phone bill, buy food, whatever. I've been a teacher all my life, but in the beginning, it was tough. Problems accumulate beyond what you ever thought possible sometimes. And so your advice is right. Get in touch with the utility right away, but sometimes your head's exploding for a family. And so I think we have to be mindful that there are situations in which there needs to be some other mechanism to prevent these problems. You guys have a tough job. We appreciate it. We really do.
You're doing tough work.
Yeah.
have the middle stuff.
Yeah. And you're on the front lines, you're giving people a hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. For Alan, was next.
Go ahead, finish it.
I just,
So Chris, it's an allowed rate of return. And that means that they are allowed to make up to that rate of return. And so when the revenue doesn't come in, then in the following year, they're going to adjust the revenue requirements so they try and earn their allowed rate of return. So 275,000 people are served by one investor-owned utility in this state. And I think we're kind of tunnel visioning in on the investor-owned utility where the shut-offs are way up in the Northeast Kingdom and lots of other areas. I think we're tunnel visioning a little bit too much on the utility that does have an assistance program. And what we hear is that people aren't applying for it because it's too little. And 200 kilowatt hours residents costs about $75 a month with all the little attachments. And, you know, that 25% of that bill is only $17.50.
Well, that's a great point about the performance metric, because you would say to yourself, we have an energy assistance program, and so you could say one of the metrics could be about what percentage growth in uptake did you have? Or
Mhm.
what new strategies did you try for recruitment? Because there's a
Mhm.
lot of, you don't always reach people the right way, and you might have to try it a different way. And then there's also the possibility that a flat decrease might not be the only option to explore,
Decrease in the bill, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
But
I
doesn't
do
why-
hope we'll
doesn't
hear.
why he pay for electric bills?
Thought they did.
Why is heat? Is it also?
Oh, the heat assistance program? Yeah, I think it's just heat.
I think state has discretion about what it is.
Light heat, that's what you're at.
Yeah.
Right,
Oh,
right.
okay, yeah. Yeah, I think it is heat, but if you're getting your heat from electric, then it helps you electric. I think it helps with your primary
Right.
heating source,
Right.
primary heating fuel. Great, well. Any other questions? Any other comments? No. Guess we will wrap it up and make some adjustments to the bill if you see fit, Victoria, since it's your bill. And the rest of us, me as well.
Right.
All right, thank you. I guess we can go offline.